So Miles, sound needs turning up. Good evening again. For those at the very back, can you hear now, Moishi? My name is Yossi Spitzer, and I have the pleasure of being your chairman for this evening. My pleasant duties involve firstly informing you briefly about Chizuk and the work that the organisation does, and then to introduce our guest speaker for this evening, Rabbi Paysach Krohn. It's now some 2 years since Rabbi Krohn last spoke for Chizuk, and we are honoured to have him speak for us again this evening. Since then, Chizuk has moved on, putting the issues of mental health well and truly on the map. It's noticeable that people who were once extremely reticent about their problems are now coming forward much more readily. Chizuk has begun to see the fruits of its endeavours. Of course, Chizuk doesn't claim to solve people's problems. Mental health problems, by their very nature, may be ongoing and sometimes recurrent. Chizuk tries to concentrate on enabling people to help themselves. This is done through empathy, trust, and friendship, and with the individual's permission by following their progress. Rather than list the services that Chizuk provides, I'd like to give you an idea of how Chizuk helps with those with mental health problems by presenting you with an anonymized case history based on a typical person who's been helped by Chizuk. Shlomi, let's call him that, spent many years of his adult life in an unbroken cycle of merely existing on his own. He lived in a topsy-turvy world in which he slept during the days and got up at nights, and he neglected his bodily and household needs. When things got too much for him, he would land up in hospital, from where he would be discharged yet again back into his old habits. At the point when Chizuk became involved, he found it difficult to motivate himself. He began by phoning the volunteers, who little by little helped him through the motions of getting up and dressed by prompting him over the phone. He was encouraged to start a new, more reasonable routine. Shlomo began to take pride in his appearance and gradually to do things for himself. He gained self-confidence and with it a few good friends whom he now invites to his home and with whom he goes out. He monitors himself, and if he feels any of the telltale signs of his slipping back, he again contacts Chizuk. Shlomo goes along to the drop-in centre, and whereas he was initially indifferent about attending, he now arrives full of enthusiasm and makes a positive contribution. Chizuk supports many other individuals with mental health problems, and wherever appropriate, of course, their families as well, especially through their twice-weekly drop-in centre. And due to popular demand, the drop-in centres have recently increased their sessions from once to twice weekly. Volunteers also befriend people by visiting them in their homes, accompanying them shopping or going on outings with them. Chizuk endeavours to tailor its services to the needs of the individual. People say that they feel comfortable at Chizuk. They feel that they're not being judged, and the knowledge that confidentiality is paramount leads to an atmosphere of trust. Ladies and gentlemen, the needs are great, but the resources are scarce. That is why Chizuk has not yet been able to expand its services to northwest London. Mental health problems are often complex and tend to be recurrent, but whatever the case, people know that they can get the support of Chizuk in the bad times as well as the good. Before I introduce our speaker, just a few brief announcements. Brief word about the raffle. Everyone has an envelope in their pack, and if you put your name on the outside and your minimum donation of £1, or alternatively fold up your donations and put them inside, with your phone number on the outside, give them to one of the Chizuk volunteers, and they'll be put in this box, which the raffle will be drawn by Rabbi Krohn straight after he took his... You want to buy one? I'll pull that one out. And the evening's proceedings after the raffle will be concluded with Mara. I ask you to switch off mobile phones and please no smoking. Thank you. Raffle prizes, the first prize is a return ticket to Israel donated by David Forter, Forte Travel Limited. The second prize is a microwave oven. The third prize, a £25 gift voucher generously donated by Mahadran Meats of Stamford Hill. The fourth prize is a £20 gift voucher generously donated by Bikosha of Hendon. Minimum donation of £1 in the envelopes provided, and let's try and fill up that Tesco box at the front. Current treasures have a stall here at the front, and they're selling copies of Rabbi Krohn's books and tapes. And we get signed copies of the books? Of course. Thanks to the Hasmonean School for their cooperation in running this evening. Special thanks to Shmuel Yosef Davidson and his team for manning the doors. And of course, Mike Davis. Very special thanks to Mr. Dick Siegel of Hippographics for his artwork for this evening and his willingness to help Chizuk at all times. He gives up a lot of his time for Chizuk. And finally, thanks to Miles Esterson, who you can't see because he's around the back there, who's doing the sound recording and will try and keep the microphone levels up so that you at the back can hear. Rabbi Paysach Krohn, who has been obscured by my back, but you'll see more of in a minute, is best known in this country through his books, which include the famous Maggid series, inspired by the subject of his talk tonight, Reb Sholem Shvadron, and also the excellent, outstanding art scroll volume of Bris Milah. Personally, I have a great deal for which to be grateful to Rabbi Krohn, and although I've only just met him in person for the first time very early this morning, we have corresponded and spoken on the phone, and I feel that he is an old friend. And let me explain why. There are several reasons. Like me, Rabbi Krohn is a Moel, and in this context, it was in association with this that I first feel that I got to know him, so as to speak, through his excellent book on Milah. I often travel into the wider community to perform a bris, and when I start to explain things to parents, it's nowadays not unusual to find that they've actually got a copy of Rabbi Krohn's book and know it all already. I then find I have to live up to their expectations and to Rabbi Krohn's very high standards. However, Rabbi Krohn is probably best known to the public through his wonderful series of Maggid books. This series was inspired by the special and close relationship between Rabbi Krohn and the late Reb Sholem Shvadron. And Rabbi Krohn has chosen tonight to speak about Reb Sholem, with whom he had a very close relationship, and who was the inspiration for his books. And the introduction to the first Maggid book is very well worth reading, as it explains this very close relationship with Reb Sholem, who was nifta only a few months ago. Which brings me to my second point of gratitude to Rabbi Krohn, which also took place long before we met. For something very special happened to me and my family, all because of this book that I have here. This unique copy of Around the Maggid's Table. And I'll tell you why. As you know, Rabbi Krohn is renowned for his storytelling, and I know that he's most particular that when he tells a story, he checks all the details at the outset, and he also likes to obtain his stories firsthand where possible. Well, I've got a story about Reb Sholem, which also combines our joint interest in Milah, which only happened because of one of Rabbi Krohn's books, and as it happened to me personally, I can vouch for every detail myself. It was some 8 years ago that my son Shlomo Osher was born. When I visited my wife in hospital, she was sitting up in bed with our new son beside her, and she was reading Rabbi Krohn's book, Around the Maggid's Table. It so happened that at that very moment, Rabbi Sholem was actually here in London on what turned out to be his very last visit here. I mentioned this to my wife, and spontaneously we both said, why not ask him to be Sunday? This was the start of one of the most unforgettable few days of my life. The bris was to be on Shabbos. Reb Sholem was by this stage very frail and could hardly walk more than a few yards. So together with my immediate next door neighbour, Yitzchak Silkin, we went to invite Reb Sholem to stay for Shabbos and to be Sunday for my son. He accepted, but because of his walking difficulty, we had to arrange a bed downstairs next door to Silkin's, as well as Shabbos Minyonim and a Sefer Torah. What an unforgettable occasion. At the Sholem Zohar, Reb Sholem entertained a huge gathering with stories and with his explanations of Ne'er Oyen, it's awesome, and Pelek Loem, wonder of wonders. It seems as though hundreds turned up for that bris. Reb Sholem joined us for the family Suda, and for the hour before the end of Shabbos, he entertained a group of invited guests in his inimitable way. We had the most unforgettable Shabbos, a truly memorable occasion, the memories of which we will hold precious forever, and all because my wife had chosen to take Rabbi Krohn's book into hospital with her. I now have a unique copy of Around the Maggid's Table because it's actually inscribed by Rabbi Sholem himself. So I personally owe a debt of gratitude to Rabbi Paysach Krohn for something about which he himself was not even aware. Thank you. Rabbi Krohn was very close to that outstanding personality, Rabbi Sholem Shvadron, and we look forward to what he has to tell us about him. Ladies and gentlemen, listen carefully, for I have no doubt that what we are about to hear will be, to quote Rabbi Sholem himself, Pelek Loem and Noirav Oyan, words of awe and wonder. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Rabbi Krohn.
I'm deeply grateful to Rav Shai Gross, to Mrs. Spitzer and Mrs. Danan, and all the officers of Chizuk for having invited me once again to come to this very special community and speak to all of you. Every Friday night, we all sing that beautiful song of L'Chadaydi. And in the second phrase of L'Chadaydi, we say, Likras Shabbos L'chu B'neilcha. Let us go out and greet the Shabbos, Kihi Mekor HaBracha, because Shabbos is the source of blessing. Miroish Mikedem, from a long time ago, from the beginning of time, Nesucha, it has been honored. Soif Maseh V'machshava Tchila. Soif Maseh, even though Shabbos was the last thing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created, B'machshava tchila, that was really what he first had in mind. I came to England this past Monday. Since Monday, the Rebbeinu Shalom has granted me the great schos to speak 15 times. In Manchester, in Gateshead, in Stamford Hill. But the speech that I've been looking forward to is this speech right here. Soif Maseh, this is my last speech on this trip, but b'machshava tchila, this is the reason I came here in the first place. I can only tell you that for the rest of my life, I will always be grateful to the Golders Green and Hendon community, because it is this community that first welcomed me a number of years ago when I first came to your shores. The friendship specifically of Rav Shmuel Tzvi Hyman and his wife, the Bambergers in Manchester, and the Liebermans in Gateshead, and all the other wonderful people that I've become so close to, are really such a wonderful, integral part of my heart. I just hope that tonight I'll be able to share with you very precious and very personal thoughts, because, as Dr. Spitzer mentioned, Rav Sholem to me was really like a father and a grandfather. When Rabbi Aaron Kotler had to begin to say the hesped on his very, very special father-in-law, Rabbi Zalman Meltzer, Rabbi Aaron started with a Gemara in Brachas Daf Vav Amud Beis. Except Rabbi Aaron had a very unique touch to that Gemara. The Gemara says, Agra de Hespeda deluye. The schar, the reward that someone gets either for giving a hesped or for coming and listening to a hesped is deluye, is the crying that one does. When one cries when he gives a hesped or when one listens to a hesped, one is showing and manifesting the terrible pain and the tsar that they feel for that person. However, Rabbi Aaron touched it completely different. He said, Agra de Hespeda, the reward that one gets for giving or coming to a hesped is deluye. It comes from the word deli. Deli is a pail. To draw